Wheel of Death.
The Wheel of Death. Dementia. What's up? I'm Luke.
Ainsley.
And
I
we
forgot
are-
my name for a second.
And we are Screamqueenie. We are horror
That we
film.
are.
Well, no, we're not horror films. We're horror fans
Yes,
reviewing horror content.
correct.
We are going to be talking today about a movie from 2015 called Dementia. It was produced. The production company for our production companies for it were Boulder Light Pictures and Prolifeed Films, I believe. It was directed by Mike Testin and starring Gene Jones, Kristina Klebe, I think is what we said it might have been, and then Hassie Harrison.
It starts out with in Vietnam, and then it turns out present day that Vietnam veteran has an episode where he has a stroke. A nurse comes in, shenanigans ensue. I think they attempted to, or intended maybe, to have it be a guessing game whether this man actually had brain damage from his stroke and thus dementia, or were these things actually going on. To me, it seemed fairly obvious that these things were actually occurring.
Well, also, it almost seemed like they were kind of trying to make it a mystery as to what the...
Well, I think it had thriller aspects.
But they were trying to make it to where you didn't know who the nurse was, but I think it was pretty obvious. Both of us at the same time kind of looked at each other and said...
Oh, yeah,
this is who this is. This is what this person is doing here. When we just got done watching it, we're like, there's a lot to unpack on this. So, first off, he's tortured, obviously, when he's in Vietnam. He's a POW in Vietnam, and he's tortured, along with a group of other people that are there with him. So you have that aspect that you're dealing with, which is like, war heroes and things like that, because there's multiple times throughout the movie that he refers to himself as a war hero. There's a newspaper article that refers to him as a war hero. So
very proudly, I might add. So it shows the character of the character,
well,
if you will.
Yeah. There, and at one point somebody goes, "I didn't know you were a Vietnam War veteran." The granddaughter says that to him, or "I didn't know you were a war hero," and he goes, "Not was I am a war hero. I'm still alive," or whatever, which seemed very narcissistic. They really hit home to the point, though, that this guy, served, and that he was tortured, and that he went through a lot of things throughout this.
That in present day, he is very much not a good person.
Still, but at the same time, just like any other thing, even though people are bad or they're whatever, they're not making right choices, you want to believe in somebody. You want to believe that the things that they're saying that happened, or the things that you're thinking that this guy has done, are not true. Like you're wanting to believe that they're not true, because you're wanting, even the characters in the movie are like, he's trying to be a better person. He's doing, he's trying to change his life around.
I didn't find myself much rooting for him, even though he did have his moments of
vulnerability,
moments where it seemed that he wanted redemption, craved redemption, was genuine in that. I still never felt, I didn't find myself rooting for him or very much concerned for his outcome.
There's a line in the movie that the person who's supposed to be the villain keeps saying in the movie, which is that people around you die and the bad things happen around you, basically.
But those things end when you die.
Yes, basically is what she's saying. It wasn't necessarily scary. It was just disturbing to me, like, by the end of it. Like, and in some ways, I feel like he just kind of passed the same things down to his descendants. like the guy did. Like the bad that he was, in some ways he kind of passed that down
to his granddaughter.
To his granddaughter. To his son in some ways too. I mean, his son.
I would say his granddaughter, because his granddaughter at the end of the film crossed the line.
Mm-hmm. She did.
And
but
it's very easy to understand why she crossed that line, and I actually rooted for her crossing that line. But she did cross the line.
Because she also suffered PTSD.
Did she?
I think she did there at the end. That's what happened. That's a very traumatic experience, right? And I'm not saying that who knows how much more she's going to suffer because of that. But in the moment, I mean, she's obviously making an emotional response to something. So, I mean, she hasn't even had time to process everything that just happened. She did not know her grandfather. She wanted to root for her grandfather. So I guess in some ways the reason that I was rooting for him was because she was. And I'm like, well, maybe... And the story that they're portraying is maybe he can have a relationship with his granddaughter that he didn't have with his son, right? Because
she wasn't exposed to him. And it's so much easier, even if a person has changed, if you have not been exposed to that person, it is so much easier to forgive their faults.
This is true. This is
rather than if you have been exposed to that person, and even if that person has changed 100%, things aren't easy to forget.
The granddaughter was a kleptomaniac in the movie, which is really doesn't have anything to do with the movie.
Absolutely nothing to do with
the
movie.
But they're trying to make it seem like the grandfather has dementia. That's what this nurse is doing. This crazy nurse that trying to make
nurse.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
They're trying to make it seem like she's trying to make it seem like he has dementia. And at one point, like, he sees the granddaughter taking something, the main character does, and he says something about it, and then they act like he's crazy because he says it. But she really was stealing things.
Yeah, just not at that moment.
Yeah, which is weird. As far as everything that we've reviewed so far, which I know hasn't been a ton, only a couple of movies, but I would say that this film, the production value is much more indie. The production value was definitely not as good, which tells me the budget was definitely smaller. I don't know what the budget was for this, but I did think they did a good job with what they did. I didn't think, I mean, definitely wasn't Academy Award winning acting, but it was decent. It was good. It was good for what I would consider to be an indie film, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't necessarily get the gore that you get with some movies, because they probably didn't have the money for the special effects in that. Like when somebody
There's 2 scenes, I think, that are gore related.
It's kind of a story behind why we put this on the Wheel of Death. Was because Ainsley had seen something about them making a second one of this, which
on a dare.
Yeah, that they made a second the second part to this on a dare, the people that made it, and so we wanted to put that on the wheel, but we're like, we gotta watch the first one first. So now the second one is on there too, so hopefully at some point we'll get to review that. I think I would give this one a pretty decent, 3 stars for me. I
was thinking 3 too.
Because I think that for the budget that it was on, I thought it had a really good story.
It did, but I think it was trying to do, which was, I felt like I left the movie disturbed, which is what I think it was trying to make you do, was think a little bit more and think about the fact that not everyone's all good and not everyone's all evil, that kind of thing.
For me, I thought the soundtrack was very prominent. It was a little bit intrusive, but I wasn't mad at it.
The soundtrack?
Yeah.
But it was kind of appropriate for the moods that it was trying to put you in, or the scenes where it was.
But I was very much aware of it, and I think with a good soundtrack, it evokes the feeling without screaming, "Hey, I'm here." I thought this one was a little bit of a show out. But I did think it was good for an indie film, and I did think that it brought out the correct tone of each scene. I did find the storytelling maybe a bit, it was
it staggered
a little bit, maybe. And it ended very abruptly.
Yeah, that was, I mean, obviously if there's a sequel, we don't know if it's tied in. We don't know anything about the sequel except that it was made on a dare for some reason, and before we read more into any of that, we wanted to make sure that we'd seen the first one. It went by fast. It's a short film. It's not like if it did end abruptly, I think it could have used maybe another 5 to 10 minutes of like after all of the
explaining more things.
Yeah. And we may get that in a sequel. We don't know that yet. I mean, but at this point, it was a standalone movie. 3 screams. We give it 3 screams total.
Yes, if I had 3 thumbs. Oh, fancy microphone.
I know. Thank you. This is something that we got from friend James. So
James Robertson. Sorry. Apologies, James. For this microphone. He's also been editing the video. Go check out his page, his Instagram page, YouTube page. He has Natural State Paranormal. Go check that out. Awesome.
We're going to be, I think, next time we are going to be doing something a little different. I think we're going to be reviewing a horror-related comic book next time called The Nice House at the Lake. And so we're excited about that, so it'll be a little bit different. Before we go, we're going to say make sure you hit that subscribe button, and you can also like us if that's something that you would prefer to do. Share, let your friends know about us. This is the most interesting thing we do in our lives, so
it's the only thing I do in my life.
We will catch you guys next time. I'm Luke.
I'm Ainsley.
And we are
Scream Queenie.